The snow had been falling since morning, soft at first, then heavier, until the world outside became nothing but white silence. Trees stood frozen like witnesses, the road had disappeared, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. It was the kind of cold that crept into the bones, the kind that made life feel fragile. She had not planned to go out that day, but something restless inside her refused to stay indoors. Maybe it was loneliness, maybe instinct, or maybe fate quietly pulling her forward. Her boots sank into the snow as she walked, each step slow and deliberate. The air burned her lungs, and her scarf was damp with her breath. She was about to turn back when she saw something dark against the endless white. At first, she thought it was a fallen tree branch. Then she saw a hand. It lay half buried, fingers stiff, skin pale and bluish. Her heart stopped. For a moment, fear rooted her to the ground. People didn't lie in the snow like this. Not alive, not supposed to. She forced herself closer, the crunch of snow loud in the silence. As she brushed away the snow, a man's face emerged. His eyes were closed, his lips cracked, his skin cold as ice. He looked less like a person and more like a memory of one. She dropped to her knees, shaking. She placed her fingers against his neck, praying she was wrong. Then she felt it. A pulse. Weak. Fading. But there. Stay with me, she whispered, though she didn't know if he could hear. Please. There was no one else. No road. No signal. Just her and a dying stranger in the snow. She struggled to lift him, surprised by how heavy he felt, how life seemed to weigh more when it was slipping away. Inch by inch, breath by breath, she dragged him toward her small cabin hidden among the trees. Every step felt endless. Her arms screamed in pain, her legs trembled, but she didn't stop. Not when she fell, not when the cold bit into her skin, not when doubt whispered that it was already too late. By the time she reached the cabin, her body was numb and her mind blurred. She kicked the door open, pulled him inside, and slammed it shut against the storm. The warmth of the room felt unreal. She laid him near the fireplace and hurried to light a fire, her hands clumsy, her thoughts racing. As the flames grew, she removed his frozen coat, his shoes, his soaked clothes. His body was covered in bruises and cuts, as if he had been running from something long before the cold claimed him. She wrapped him in blankets, rubbed his hands, pressed warm cloth against his chest. She spoke to him constantly, filling the room with her voice so silence wouldn't take him. She didn't know his name. She didn't know where he came from. She didn't know why he was there. None of it mattered. All that mattered was that he was still breathing. Hours passed. The fire crackled. The storm raged outside. At times, she thought she had lost him. His breathing would slow until she leaned close, counting each fragile rise and fall of his chest. Exhaustion pressed down on her, but she refused to sleep. Not yet. Not while his life balanced on a thin line between this world and the next. Sometime before dawn, he coughed. The sound was rough and broken, but it was the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. She rushed to his side, tears burning her eyes. His fingers twitched. His lips parted as if trying to speak. She helped him drink warm water, spoon by spoon, careful not to rush him. His eyes fluttered open briefly, unfocused, confused, then closed again. You're safe, she said softly. You're not alone. Days passed. The storm ended, leaving behind a frozen quiet that felt heavy with secrets. She stayed by his side, feeding him soup, changing his bandages, warming him when the cold shook his body. Sometimes he drifted into restless sleep, murmuring words she couldn't understand. Sometimes he woke in panic, eyes wild, as if trapped in a nightmare even while awake. She would sit beside him until his breathing calmed, until fear loosened its grip. He never told her who he was. Not at first. When she asked, his gaze would darken, his jaw tighten, and he would look away. She learned not to push. Everyone had their reasons. Everyone carried something they weren't ready to face. As his strength returned, she noticed things. The way he watched the door as if expecting it to burst open. The way his hands clenched when he heard distant noises. The scars on his body that spoke of violence, not accident. This man had not simply gotten lost in the snow. He had been running. From what? She didn't know. From whom? She didn't ask. At night, when the fire burned low and the world outside slept, she sometimes wondered what she had brought into her home. Fear whispered to her then. What if he was dangerous? What if saving him had been a mistake? But each time she looked at him, weak yet alive because she had refused to walk away, that fear faded. She had seen death too close in his face. Whatever he was, whatever he had done or endured, he was human. And once, that had been enough. One evening, as the sky turned deep blue and the cabin filled with shadows, he finally spoke. I shouldn't be here, he said quietly. She looked at him, waiting. People are looking for me, he continued. If they find me, they won't stop. She felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Then why were you alone in the snow? A bitter smile touched his lips. Because dying seemed easier than being caught. The words hung between them, heavy and raw. She didn't ask more. She didn't need details to understand pain. She nodded slowly. You were found, she said. That means something. He studied her face, as if trying to understand why she hadn't turned him away. You don't know who I am, he said. You don't know what I've done. No, she replied, but I know what you were when I found you. You were someone who needed help. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then his shoulders shook, and the weight he had carried cracked open. Silent tears fell, the kind that came from places too deep for sound. She didn't touch him. She simply stayed. Sometimes, that was the greatest kindness of all. When he was strong enough to stand, he helped her around the cabin. He chopped wood, repaired broken steps, cleared snow. Life slowly returned to a quiet rhythm. Laughter found its way back into the walls, soft and uncertain at first, then warmer. They shared meals, stories that avoided the past, moments that felt almost normal. Almost peaceful, but peace is fragile when built on borrowed time. One morning, distant engines broke the silence. The sound of vehicles moving through snow. He froze, color draining from his face. She knew before he spoke. They're here. Her heart raced. Who? It doesn't matter, he said. What matters is that they can't find me here. Fear surged, but she stood firm. You saved yourself once by surviving, she said. You'll do it again. He looked at her, something fierce and grateful in his eyes. I never thanked you. She shook her head. You don't owe me anything. Yes, I do, he said softly. You gave me back my life. They hid him, covered his tracks. When the vehicles stopped nearby and voices called out, she stepped outside alone, calm on the surface, shaking inside. She told them she lived alone. That she had seen no one. That the snow erased everything. Lies came easily when truth meant death. After hours that felt like years, the engines faded. Silence returned. He left that night, not because he wanted to, but because staying would only bring danger to her. Door. They stood outside the cabin, the cold wrapping around them once more. The same cold that had almost taken him. The same cold that had brought them together. I don't know if I'll survive what comes next, he said. She met his gaze. You already survived the worst, she replied. Don't forget that. He nodded, then turned away, disappearing into the darkness, into a future uncertain and wild. She watched until he was gone, until only snow and silence remained. Sometimes, when the nights grow long and the wind howls through the trees, she thinks of him. Of the man she found between life and death. Of the choice she made without knowing the cost. And she knows this one truth, clear and unshaken. In a world frozen by fear, choosing humanity is the bravest act of all.